in the next term.
And how concerned are you that the Supreme Court will come back and determine that the executive order is unconstitutional?
We're very confident in the Supreme Court. But again, it's pending litigation, and that will directly be determined in October, but it indirectly impacts every case in this country, and we're thrilled with their decision today. Peter.
Madam Attorney General, thank you for being here to take our questions. A couple questions to the both of you. The EO had a 30-day grace period before it goes into effect. Is there any thought about trying to make it effective immediately within that period of time?
We're going to follow the law. We're going to make those decisions, and we're going to do what's right in the bounds of the law.
And then the DOJ didn't ask the justices to rule on the merits of the birthright citizenship ban.
Florida Live starts now.
Well, good afternoon to you. Welcome into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Wymer, and thanks for joining us on this Friday afternoon live on Fox Local and on YouTube. Here's what we have coming up for you on this next hour together. Coming up near the end of the show, we're going to hear from the new Magic draft picks, Jace Richardson and Noah Prinda, who were introduced in Orlando just a little bit ago. Speaking to reporters, holding up their jerseys, doing all that, the newest members of the Orlando Magic. We're going to hear from them in just a little bit. We're also going to talk with Jose Rivas, criminal defense attorney, who's going to break down what's next in the case after the suspended Osceola County Sheriff, Marcos Lopez, bonded out of jail yesterday evening. He had been held there for 3 weeks before he was able to post bond. He just left jail yesterday evening, and we'll talk about those next steps. But we begin this afternoon with a man arrested in Volusia County who has died in ICE custody in Miami. I want to bring in Claire Healy. She's the Esserman Investigative Fellow with the Miami Herald, and she joins us live now via Zoom. And Claire, I know you've done some reporting on this. We appreciate you joining us this afternoon here on Florida Live.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
So we're talking about Johnny Noviello, who is a Canadian national and who died in ICE custody at the Federal Detention Center in downtown Miami. What do we know about what happened?
Well, we don't know very much about his death. We don't have a preliminary cause of death. The medical examiner's office said that it's still under investigation. What we do know is that he was found unresponsive in his cell by staff on Monday. And the staff attempted to resuscitate him and were unsuccessful.
What do we know about Johnny Noviello and what brought him here and what ended up kind of taking him to that detention center in Miami?
Yeah, so I spoke with his father, I spoke with his lawyer, and what we know about him was he was a Canadian citizen. He moved to Daytona Beach when he was about 10 years old. In 1986, I believe, 1986, 1988, 88. And so he grew up in Florida. He grew up at Daytona Beach. He came here legally on a legal visa. He got his green card in 1991. And then in 2017, him and his father were both charged with selling opioids out of their family auto shop. And so in 2023, he was convicted of that, and he served some time in jail. And he was released for a year on community control, so basically house arrest. And then he was put on probation. He was put on probation in February of this year, and in May, he was picked up at the probation office by ICE, and they initiated removal proceedings against him, which can happen to green card holders who have been convicted of certain crimes. And he was placed in ICE custody in the Federal Detention Center in downtown Miami for about 6 weeks before he passed away this Monday in the center.
I know you said you spoke with his father and with his attorney. What are they saying about his death?
Well, the family said, we are destroyed. You know, this is a great loss for them. His father was devastated, and so was the rest of his family. He is one of about, I think 2 of his brothers are here in Florida, but he's one of 6 siblings. And they just said this is devastating for the family, of course. And they had been trying to reach him for a while. They said they were having difficulty getting in touch with him. And so the father actually has not spoken to him for weeks. And before they were informed by the government of his passing, and this has just devastated the family. His lawyer, who represented him in his criminal case, said he was also shocked. He was really surprised, and he said, you know, obviously, this is not a case where he does not have a criminal record, but the lawyer said that he was not posing any public safety risk, and so he was very surprised that ICE took him into federal custody. And he said that, you know, he did not believe that there was a need for this man to be in detention. So those were the conversations I had this week.
As you reported as well, he is the 9th person to die in ICE custody this year and the 4th in a Florida facility. What do we know about those other cases?
Right. So some of the cases, the cause of death is still under investigation. So the government releases extensive reports when someone died, you know, detailing the timeline leading up to their death under federal law. We do know that the other 3 who died this year, one was in Broward Transitional Center. She was a Haitian woman who passed away, and her official cause of death, I believe, is still pending. And the other 2 died after they were detained at Chrome, a detention center here just outside of Miami. And so my colleague and I did an investigation into those cases. One was a Honduran man, and the other was from Ukraine. And so we pulled as much of their medical history as we could. And what we found is, you know, both of them were ruled natural deaths. One died of a stroke, the Ukrainian man. And the other one, the Honduran man, the medical examiner's office said that he died of complications of schizoaffective disorder. And so we dug into that a bit, and the Honduran man, Henry Ruiz Guillen, the experts that we talked to said, you know, that's not a sufficient cause of death. You don't really die of schizophrenia. You die of what happens, you know, different actions and medication. And so they said that basically this man's death raises a lot of questions. We don't know exactly why he died, and this explanation we were given doesn't quite make sense. And then what we found with the Ukrainian man, Maxim Chernak, who passed away in February, is that medical records show that staff at Chrome thought he may be intoxicated when he was found having a stroke. And so they waited about 40 minutes before calling an ambulance, which experts also raised concern about and said that, you know, every minute really counts when you're having a stroke. So that's what we know about the circumstances for the Florida deaths. The most recent death before Johnny Noviello was in Atlanta. He was a Mexican man, and the official cause of death, I believe, is again still under investigation, but it appears to be an apparent suicide.
You mentioned the extensive reports that are put out on this. What's the next step with the death of Johnny Noviello, and when can we expect kind of that report to come with this?
So the next steps are that there is likely an autopsy being conducted to investigate his death and the circumstances around his death. And ICE must release that report that I mentioned within 90 days. So that should be coming within that 90-day window. You know, we know from his medical history, from his family, that he did have epilepsy and he was on seizure medication. So I think the question, you know, in a lot of these deaths that are happening in ICE custody is really just, did they receive the medical treatment that they needed? Did they receive the medication that they needed? Did it come in time? And so those are what we'll be looking for in the report that comes out within the next 90 days, and also in the autopsy.
Claire Healy, Esserman Investigative Fellow with the Miami Herald. We appreciate you joining us this afternoon here on Florida Live to talk about your reporting and your investigations into these deaths in ICE custody in Miami.
Thank you so much for having me.
We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Wymer, and thanks for joining us on this Friday afternoon, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. A grand jury has indicted a man for accused of making online threats against Alina Habba. He was arrested in Orlando for posting a series of threatening posts on the social media platform X. That's according to investigators, including the U.S. attorney, who held a news conference this morning to talk about it.
This week, the Middle District of Florida grand jury indicted Salvador Rosotto for threats he made against the United States Attorney for the District of New Jersey, Alina Habba. The defendant was arrested this morning in Orlando in connection with that indictment. By way of background, on May 19, 2005, ex-user at Risotto Sal, who was later identified as the defendant, made a series of threatening posts on X social media platform, including, "How about 86 Alina Habba?" Keep in mind this took place shortly after the controversy in the media about the use of 86 and what 86 actually meant. The next, "A slow, painful death for Habba. Eliminate Habba, 86 traitor. Death penalty for all traitors. I hope you die a painful death," to name just a few. Many of those threats are listed in the indictment, but frankly, at this press conference, they are much too vulgar to quote. An investigation by the FBI showed the defendant resided in Orlando and was using an IP address in Orlando. The FBI and the United States Marshal Service took immediate action to identify Risotto and ascertain that Risotto had in fact made the threats in response to perceived official actions by United States Attorney Habba. The two-count indictment that you have before you alleges that the defendant transmitted interstate threats to injure the victim, U.S. Attorney Habba, and that the defendant was retaliating against U.S. Attorney Habba, a federal law enforcement officer, by threats. The allegations in the indictment that I have summarized to your allegations, the defendant is, in this case, as in all cases, presumed innocent and until proven guilty. As an aside, make no mistake about it, and the word should go forth, that if you threaten to kill or injure any person in the Middle District of Florida, our office, in conjunction with the FBI, our other federal law enforcement officers, and state and local officers will partner together to identify, pursue, and federally prosecute you. You will be held accountable under the laws of the United States. We will stop you from threatening victims and from following through on those threats. Our highest priority is to keep our community safe. In this case, our law enforcement partners, FBI Tampa, FBI in Newark, where U.S. Attorney Habba resides, and the United States Marshal Service demonstrated that disrupting threats of violence is also a top priority in each one of their agencies. Threats of violence not only impact the victims, but they impact our entire society. And they impact the very fabric of our society. I want to take a moment to directly call out the harms that threatening federal officials have caused, including U.S. attorneys and their staff. And by just talking about the federal family, I don't mean to leave out state and locals, because our state and local partners receive threats on a routine basis. But in the federal level, in addition to U.S. Attorney Habba, the last month has seen the United States Attorney in the Northern District of New York threatened by a defendant wielding a knife and who was illegally in the country. Another man was recently arrested for sending threatening communications via email to the U.S. Attorney's office in North Dakota. The United States attorneys are not alone, and agents are not alone. Our office, in conjunction with our law enforcement partners, have prosecuted threats against the president, members of Congress, members of the judiciary, and law enforcement officers just for doing their jobs, and all in the last 6 months. According to a recent New York Times survey, 277 judges, almost a third of our federal judiciary, have been threatened in the last year. I say this to everyone. Our office stands with our federal partners and state and local law enforcement and are committed to combat these threats of violence. Many years ago, the former director of or Secretary General of the United Nations, and he was a Swedish diplomat. He was a very wise man. His name was Dag Hammarskjöld. He noted this: freedom from fear could be said to sum up the whole philosophy of human rights. People in our country have the right to live free of fear. No one should live in fear because of threats of violence. We will work aggressively to disrupt this criminal behavior. If you threaten another person with violence, you should expect that our office, with local law enforcement, federal and our state and local partners, will take you at your word, whether those threats are made in person, on a social media platform, in a letter, or otherwise. We will hold you accountable for your crimes, and we will protect the members of our community, and we will do everything we can to do so.
We'll be right back with more Florida Live after this. Welcome back into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Wymer. Thanks for joining us on this Friday afternoon live on Fox Local and on YouTube. It is time now for our Tampa Connection. For that, we go to Fox 13 News anchor Linda Hurtado. And Linda, good to see you this afternoon.
Good to see you too. Happy Friday, Garrett. We're going to start with a Polk County deputy being arrested for stealing cash during a traffic stop. Here's what we've learned about that. This deputy is off the force after investigators say he took cash out of a driver's wallet during this traffic stop. That led to his arrest. The sheriff's office says Deputy Justin Register recently pulled over a driver in the Fort Meade area. Two other deputies who had arrived as backup later said they saw Register put the driver's wallet and phone in the trunk of his patrol car, then return to the trunk and take the money out of the wallet before handing it to the driver's daughter. The driver soon noticed that $300 in cash was missing, and that's when the sheriff's office says Register returned to his patrol car, folded cash out of a bag, and said, "Oh, here it is." Sheriff Grady Judd said an investigation began after the other deputies spoke to their lieutenant about that incident.
It makes me so angry I could chew the bark off of oak trees, because this guy betrayed the community trust. He's messed his life up. But our deputies that caught him did the right thing.
off oak trees. Register had been with the sheriff's office since 2018 and resigned after his arrest. The sheriff's office says he would have been fired if he had not resigned. He was also a drug recognition expert and was recognized for making more than 200 DUI arrests. Well, the sheriff says all of those cases could be in jeopardy, and he's working with the state attorney's office to review them. Hey, lightning, you know, the summer storms are back, and we see lightning just about every day, right? Well, a Hillsborough County family says a lightning strike caused a power surge that caught their house on fire, and they found out because of a baby monitor alert. Tim and Macy Osmond said they were at a friend's house with their 7-month-old son on June 13th when they got that alert. They rushed home to find smoke and flames, ran inside to get their 2 dogs, Gus and Gwen, out of the house. Gus, their 7-year-old Mastiff boxer, survived and is recovering, but sadly, Gwen did not make it.
She was only a year and a half old. She's a Cane Corso, and she was just coming into her stride. You think about all the different scenarios, what could we have done differently, this, that, and the other, but all we really want is Gwen.
Yeah, the family says a fire inspector told them a lightning strike within half a mile of their home caused the power surge, and the fan above their couch sparked the fire. Now, 2 weeks later, they're staying at a friend's house while raising money to help with rebuilding and pet care.
Now it's going through the mess of insurance and kind of the paper trail, you know, calling to turn off our internet, to turn off, you know, all the adult things that you have to do that are just kind of a pain. So at the same time, juggling, you know, the mental effect of experiencing the fire and then also losing Gwenny, you know, that it's all one big balance, but taking it day by day and just keep moving.
Well, the Osmonds credit their baby monitor for helping them to act quickly. They urge everyone to check their smoke detectors and pay attention to any app alerts if you have cameras in your home. When it comes to lightning strikes in Florida, the Insurance Information Institute says there were nearly 4,800 claims related to homes damaged by lightning in 2024 and about $113 million in damage. Well, June marks Pride Month, and a large celebration is taking place this weekend in the Bay Area. 500,000 people from around the state and the country, actually, are coming together for the annual St. Pete Pride Parade and Festival. Since the parade was first held back in 2003, it's grown to become the largest pride parade in the southeastern United States, generating $60 million in economic impact each year. Some events get underway tonight, with more festivities scheduled for tomorrow ahead of the parade at 6 p.m. St. Pete Police and other local law enforcement agencies will be on patrol in downtown St. Pete, with the police chief saying preparations began months in advance to make sure everyone stays safe.
This is always the largest parade that we know of in Florida, so we prepare for that. We prepare for people coming from all over, not just Florida, but all over the U.S. to come to our event, because we want to continue to make it safe, and we want people to feel like they're safer in our community.
Our Pride organization and this event is an event that is centered on joy and celebrating with our allies and with the people that identify in the community. For that reason alone, it is incredibly important for people to come out and to show support, both our allies and community members.
As for tonight's events, there's a 6 p.m. concert at Janice Live starring Grammy-nominated R&B artist Durand Bernard. Tickets are $25. Also starting at 6, the People's Pride Night at Allendale United Methodist Church. You'll find DJs, poetry readings, art, and free food. And then tomorrow, festival activities begin at 2 p.m. ahead of the parade at 6. So if you're going to any of these events, expect road closures and detours all weekend. To help with parking, Tropicana Field and St. Pete High School are opening their parking lots, and the Sunrunner transit system will also be available for free rides into downtown. So it's going to be a busy weekend in St. Petersburg, Garrett.
All right, things to look forward to and to know about this weekend. Linda Hurtado from Fox 13 Tampa Bay, we appreciate you joining us this afternoon for our Tampa Connection.
All right, see you, Garrett.
We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Wymer, and thanks for joining us on this Friday afternoon live on Fox Local and on YouTube. Suspended Osceola County Sheriff Marcos Lopez is now out of jail after bonding out yesterday evening.
Okay, yep, I'm here.
Sheriff Lopez, do you agree with the accusations? Sheriff Lopez, do you agree with the charges? Sheriff Lopez, do you agree with the accusations? Sheriff Lopez, how does it feel to be on the other side of the perp walk? How does it feel, Sheriff? What is your message, Sheriff?
That was the scene outside the Lake County Jail yesterday evening, just after 6:30. The sheriff, we know, first had to meet requirements to prove his money was not involved in any criminal enterprise, since he's facing charges of racketeering in connection with what is an alleged criminal illegal gambling ring. So he was in jail for 3 weeks before bonding out yesterday evening. Talked with the defense attorney Jose Rivas about what happens next.
Well, 3 weeks is a long time, I don't think. But again, it all depends on what your resources are. In this particular case, you have to show that you have, $100,000 in cash for a bondsman, which is typically 10%. Now, some bail bonds may take less, 30,000, 50,000, do the rest on a payment plan. But nonetheless, you have to show that those funds are legitimate and convince the state where they're coming from.
When you're talking about being out on bond now, what are we know he's got a ankle monitoring, had to turn in his passport. Can you just kind of walk us through the conditions when someone is released and kind of still, with pending proceedings ahead of them?
Well, the purpose of bond, like I said, is to secure that the defendant returns to court. It's not to punish or keep the individual in jail. In this particular case, an additional layer of security was a GPS, which he must wear at all times, obviously. There's also, he has to give it to the clerk of court his passport or any passport that he has, and also surrender any firearms that he has. But it's obviously an advantage to be outside. There's no restrictions that I'm aware of that he cannot go to different counties. He can travel to go visit his attorneys, or travel to visit some family. I'm sure the bail bonds is going to have some restrictions on that he can't go perhaps to Puerto Rico or outside a certain jurisdiction. But as far as the court is concerned, we did not see any restrictions that he can't travel within the state or out of state.
Also, I believe he had to turn in weapons.
That is correct. That's typical, in any kind of. It's a lot of times to do it on violent crimes, but usually, if you have any firearms, you have to surrender them to law enforcement, and they'll keep them during the duration of the case.
So an arraignment scheduled for Monday. Can you just kind of walk us through the kind of next steps that we can expect in this case?
Well, right. There's usually what we call an arraignment, and typically that's so the attorney can enter a plea of not guilty. That court hearing is going to be taken off the calendar. You're probably not going to see Marco Lopez in court anytime soon. Typically what happens is the attorney can waive his presence at the arraignment. Any other pretrial conferences, what we call status conferences, right? They're going to be waived. He will have to be appeared primarily either whether it's going to be a plea, negotiation, or a trial. But this type of case could take, anywhere from 6 months or even a year, or even longer by the time all the investigation is done and all the defense has been built.
Jose, from a defense attorney's standpoint, why would you waive that so that your client would not have to appear in the courtroom for some of those procedural hearings?
It's typically it's typical. Anyone that has a private attorney, we can waive their presence in court. There's no reason to go to court whatsoever. All the judge is going to say is, this is what you've been charged with. Do you have an attorney? The criminal defense attorneys have already presented what we call a notice of appearance to the court. So they've already presented to the court. They're going to get all the notifications. You can waive the presence. The Florida statute allows you to waive the presence, which in this particular case, it's funny, the court required a very high bond, a GPS, but did not require that he be present at every court hearing. There are some cases that judges do require, but usually that's for a large flight risk, right? Those are at a high flight risk. But, granted that you have such a high bond, the judge did not require him to be present. Now, if he does fail to appear for any required or there's any issue, the judge can always change that condition.
Now, for his attorney, I would imagine that would be even more so, given this is a high-profile case. He is a high-profile defendant in this, and would you be concerned if you were his attorney about him having to appear in court and that kind of image continuing to be out there ahead of an anticipated trial at some point?
Well, there's no reason for him to be out in court. or not. So the job of the criminal defense attorney is to protect your client. And again, there's no, and and help throughout the process, hold their hand throughout the process. There's no reason for him to go to court. He's not going to be given any testimony. The only reason he would have to go to court again, maybe perhaps if there's any motions that need to be done where they require his testimony. But at this case, or this stage of the judicial process, there's no reason for him to go to court at all.
Jose, I want to talk about the case kind of at large. We know there are several defendants who have already been arrested. There's still one who is still wanted in this. Can you just talk about the kind of timeline for a case like this? Because I would imagine with so many kind of moving parts, and we're still seeing details kind of come out, that this is a complicated thing, and will kind of take a while to move through the system.
Right. Usually when you have co-defendants, what's going to happen is the more co-defendants you have, the longer the case is going to get to resolve. Why? Because now after the arraignment, we're going to have where the state is going to send what we call full discovery, which is all the evidence to all the co-defendants' attorneys. Once they have all that information, they're going to start setting what we call depositions. Depositions are interviews under oath where they're going to depose all the witnesses. It's not uncommon for this case to have maybe 100 or 200 witnesses. And when I talk about those kind of witnesses, we're talking anyone that has any kind of involvement. We're not only talking co-defendants, we're talking law enforcement, anybody that did any of the forensics, anyone that has had any kind of involvement, minor or major, on this particular case will be on that witness list. So you have to go through the list, sort them out, and then you have to start setting depositions, which could be anywhere from 20, 30 minutes to 1 hour per person. And then now that needs to get coordinated within all the parties involved. And what happens, since you have some individuals that are still out there, right, and what happens, you can only depose one witness only one time. So if you have 5 different attorneys, 5 different co-defendants, all of them need to get on the same page and depose that witness only one time. So the depositions are going to take a long time to do on this particular case.
Is that a hang up, having that one co-defendant still not arrested then?
It could be. There's a lot of discovery, and it's not uncommon for, you'll see, you're going to have the arraignment. At the arraignment, they're going to set what we call a pre-trial conference, which is kind of like a status conference. It's not going to be uncommon for them to ask for what we call a 2-docket continuance, which is a 2-cycle, because, I mean, heard the affidavit is 250 pages long. You as a defense attorney, you need to comb through all of that. You need to figure out who's who, what involvement is, and get investigators, start looking for people. So all of that forensics, all of that information takes a long time to build a defense. So it's not uncommon to continue this case quite some time before you have another status conference. So yes, the more discovery there is, the more co-defendants there is, the longer the case, the bigger the case, and not necessarily complex. There's just more volume of evidence that you need to sort through.
Keep it here on Fox Local and on YouTube. More Florida Live in just a minute. Welcome back into Florida Live. Garrett Wymer here with you on Fox Local and on YouTube. It is a Friday afternoon. We appreciate you joining us here today. New details today about this so-called alligator Alcatraz, the temporary ICE detention facility being built right now in the Everglades. Collier and Dade County line pretty much in the Everglades. We now know that that facility can hold about 3,000 people and that the first detainees are expected to arrive in just a few days, this coming Tuesday. Governor Ron DeSantis gave Fox and Friends anchor Steve Ducey a tour this morning of some of the work that's going on there to get that facility ready.
Normally on a Friday, the Everglades would be so quiet, but right now the hills are alive with the sound of construction. Joining us right now is Governor Ron DeSantis here in the great state of Florida. You came up with this idea in the last couple of weeks, right, for alligator Alcatraz. Explain it.
Well, when you want to have deportation of illegal aliens, there's a process the DHS has to go through to vet, to process, and then to stage them for removal.
Right.
And, we've got jails, and our sheriffs and police are working. The state of Florida is all in on President Trump's mission. And obviously you have ICE operations, but that's not enough. And so there needs to be more ability to intake, process, and then deport. So this answers that. This is going to be able to have more than 3,000 illegals can be processed through here. We've got a massive runway right behind us where any of the federal assets that they want to fly these people back to their home country, they can do it one-stop shop.
So where will the migrants come from? And we should point out, we're about 50 miles to the west of Miami, right?
More than that, I'd say. So we're in the heart. We're actually mostly in Collier. We're actually mostly in Collier County, to be honest with you. So
I was going to say
this is the
we're in the middle of nowhere.
Dade Collier Airport. So this is an airport that we use for training, military. As you see, we're doing this on the existing footprint. But basically, I would say most of the illegals will likely be ones that are apprehended in Florida. We've got across this country about 750,000 illegals that have already been ordered to be removed by an immigration judge. We've probably got 50,000 or more in Florida. And so we're going to have our hands full just with that. But I'll tell you, this is going to be a force multiplier, and we're really happy to be working with the federal government to satisfy President Trump's mandate.
None of this stuff was here, except for the runway, about a week ago.
Well, there was a couple buildings with the airport. This is a functioning airport. The media has erroneously tried to say it was defunct. It's not defunct. They do have flights. All those training flights will still be able to continue, no problem. But all the stuff that goes into intake and processing of illegals, you're seeing this put up. This is all 24 hours. 24 hours from now, you're going to see even more. And by Tuesday, this will be able to have intake of illegals.
And you've thought of everything. Okay, so there are 4 gigantic tents. Let's come on over here, Governor. And people are thinking, okay, you're in the middle of the Everglades. It's hot. That would explain why you've got this bank of air conditioners here.
Yeah, so I mean, this is going to be, illegals will come in, they'll be processed. There'll be places for them to be housed. You'll have an ability for food. You'll have an ability for them to consult legal rights if they have that, because there is a process that's involved with this. So this is really everything. This is going to be a self-contained little area. And then, of course, you also have stuff for the staff that work here. So we've got laundry facilities, we've got showers, we've got, obviously, there you see the shower and bath facilities.
Yep, right there.
Yep.
Where do you go to get a bunch of bathrooms like that?
Well, so this is being done by the Division of Emergency Management. So when we have a hurricane, like we would actually have people stage here for hurricane response normally, anyways, but we have it when we have all the linemen come in to do the power. We have to set up little areas for them. And so you have all this type of stuff. So this is not our first rodeo. The detainee illegal alien mission's a little bit different, and the deportations, but logistics, we know how to do that.
Right, and for people thinking, okay, they're gonna put the migrants on this hot asphalt, it looks like you're building a subfloor, and in fact, some guys are putting down the plywood.
Yeah, no, look, this will be, I mean, there's not going to be anything that they're hurting for anything. There'll be AC. There'll be things that everybody needs. There's medical here. So it's being done right. It's being done by the book.
Well, when you think of the imagery of Alcatraz, Alcatraz is surrounded by a bay. Here in the Everglades, we're surrounded by, You're actually surrounded by gators and pythons.
So this is as secure as it gets. I mean, if a criminal alien were to escape from here somehow, and I don't think they will, you've got nowhere to go. I mean, what are you going to do? Trudge through the swamp and dodge alligators on the way back to 50, 60 miles just to get to civilization? Not going to happen. So not only that is it secure, it also takes this deportation mission out of the hair of our local and state law enforcement. This has no impact on Florida residents because some of that stuff can have an impact on them if it's in more populated areas. And so logistically, this really answers the call. All you need is a little bus to move them, about 2,000 feet that way, then get on a plane and they're gone.
Well, listen, the DHS must love this because they're hurting for facilities, and here you are helping the federal government out.
Yeah, well, I said at the very beginning when President Trump took office, you have to have state and locals on board. You got to be on the team if you want to get the deportation mission done. We've done that better than anybody, but I hope other states will follow suit.
If the president is watching, I'm sure that runway right over there could probably land Air Force One.
An invitation from me. We can land Air Force One right there, no problem. We'll get it done. I think the president would be impressed with what these guys are doing out here.
Well, it is very, very impressive. Let me ask you something off topic regarding Alcatraz here. A couple days ago, you said regarding New York City, where that socialist won the Democratic primary, if he wins, so many people are going to be leaving New York. It's going to be a giant exodus, and they're going to be coming to Florida.
Unfortunately, I think the bad governance just repels people. And I love New York City. I think it's one of the greatest cities in the world when it's at its peak. But now they're struggling. And if this guy gets in, all bets are off. And yes, the socialism, he wants to tax like white neighborhoods more. It's insane. But I'll tell you, when he says abolish the NYPD, eliminate cash bail, your personal safety as a resident there is at risk if this guy's policies go into effect. And that's the one thing I found talking to people that have moved to Florida. They have no tolerance for the kind of defund the police nonsense. And once these leftists do that, they get out of dodge because they want to protect themselves and their families.
Well, and the guy's talking about the grocery stores will be run by the city.
Imagine how well that's going to work out. I mean,
just imagine the DMV for butter and bread. That's going to be crazy.
We know his ideas will not work. They have been tried in some areas and some of the things he's done. But even places like San Francisco have course corrected a little bit. Why would you want to put somebody in office where you know it's going to lead to disaster?
Well, and I've heard that I saw on social media that one of those celebrity real estate agents said as soon as he won the primary, his phone was ringing off the hook. I don't want to buy that apartment in New York. Find me something in Florida.
Yeah, and it's sad. I mean, we're proud of what we've done. Our budget in Florida, even though we have millions of more people than New York State, our budget's half the size of New York. No income tax. We're working on eliminating property tax for our residents. We're doing all this good stuff. Low crime rate, and we're proud of that. But part of the reason we've been successful is because of bad decisions in New York, Illinois, California. People ask me, well, how do you guys do it? I was like, well, I have a little cheat code. All I do is watch California, Illinois, New York, then do the opposite. And when I do that, it works out.
Well, and it's one of the reasons why I am now based in Florida.
There you go.
I am a Florida resident.
We're glad to have you.
My governor, Ron DeSantis. Congratulations. This looks great. And once again, if the president's watching, call the governor's office. Come take a look. It's fantastic.
An open invitation there from the governor to President Trump to come visit Alligator Alcatraz. We should also note that we have seen the Republican Party of Florida selling some merchandise that says Alligator Alcatraz, trying to raise some money there ahead of those. Again, on Tuesday, the first detainee is expected there at that temporary facility in the Everglades. We're going to take a quick break here on Florida Live, but we'll be right back after this. Welcome back into Florida Live. Give you a live look right now at Kia Center in downtown Orlando, the home of the Orlando Magic. Today, the Orlando Magic introduced their newest members of the team. Their two draft picks. First rounder Jace Richardson, who was picked number 25 out of Michigan State. And then last night, Orlando Magic trading up to select Noah Penda, who is a French wing, 6'8", 225 pounds. Today, both of them were introduced to the media alongside Jamal Mosley, the head coach, and president of basketball operations, Jeff Weltman.
Thanks everybody for coming today. Obviously, really exciting day for the Magic. You know, we believe that we've landed two great young men and great young players. And the exciting part for us is always, as you guys know, we look for the person before the player, and we feel that these two young guys have, you know, our Magic DNA. They're about others. They that reflects itself on the court, and you know, I always say you can tell the person by the way he plays. And these two guys right here, they look a lot different, but they're quite the same in that they both are givers, you know. And I think. I hope that they grow into our team in that respect, and look forward to that happening. Before we start, actually, I should have begun this by saying I want to welcome some of the family members here. So Jason, whom I just met, Jackie, not met yet, and Jackson, and Cody. Jason's agent is here, checking his phone as most agents do. And from Noah's family, you guys made it so easy on me. Frederic and Frederic. And Sister Eva behind there, and Fleur. So thank you guys all for coming. It's really special to have you guys here. All that being said, oh, and where's Francois? There he is. And Francois, where's his magic hat? All that being said, I'd like to open up for any questions, and shoot.
Okay, if you could wait for a microphone and state your name and affiliation. Start with Dan.
Dan Savage, OrlandoMagic.com. This is for both Jace and Noah. Now that you've had a short amount of time to reflect, what was it like hearing your name called on draft night, either on TV or in person, and what was the reaction to coming here to Orlando?
I mean, still a surreal feeling. I still can't wrap my head around it. I have all my family members there with me, Coach Izzo there, and all my close ones. So just be able to have that special moment with them, it was really, really special.
Me and like Jace, I was there during both of the draft nights. So just being able to walk on stage and see my family being proud of me was just a great feeling. And I started to understand what was happening to me as soon as I walked into this gym.
Jason Beatty with the Orlando Sentinel. Noah, we talked with you last night. Just you were disappointed that you didn't get picked in the first round, but for the Magic to actually trade up to select you, just what does that mean to you, and then the expectations that come with that?
I think it's a reward of all the work I've been putting in the last years. I feel like it's really a mark of trust that the organization is putting in me, and faith. So I'm just really glad to be in that position where I know that people are trusting me for the future.
Philip Rossman-Reich from Orlando Magic Daily. For Jason, Noah, you've heard Jeff say that you have the kind of Magic DNA in you. I promise this isn't to get you in trouble or part of a quiz or anything, but what does that mean to you, and what do you feel that means about you as you join this team?
I think it's just me and just coming in and working as hard as you can. I think me and Noah, when we came in, we worked out together. So we really came in and worked as hard as we possibly could. And I think that's one thing they really liked about us, is that we're going to put our full effort out there.
Like he said, I think it's probably also taking care of each other. I felt like the organization was really big on family. Having all of their players connected to each other, so I think it's a big part of the DNA.
Cody Taylor, Rookie Wire, USA Today for Jace.
Do you have any prior relationships with any of the other Magic players? And just from afar, what have you maybe liked or noticed about how the team plays under Coach Mose?
I went to Kyrie camp with Anthony Black a couple years ago, so that's one of the relationships that I have. But just what I'm seeing from this team is it's a really hard-nosed defensive team. These guys really get after it defensively. So I think that's one of the biggest things that I really like about this team is that it's kind of like a Michigan State. Like, you're going to go out there and we're going to play defense the whole game.
Jason, Noah, Alex Walker, Channel 9 here in Orlando. The reality of the NBA is that some players are going to get picked to franchises and aren't going to win right away, and some, like you guys, are going to get drafted to a franchise that are ready to compete right away. So what does it mean to join a franchise that could possibly contend for the East and beyond this year?
I think it shows that people in the organization are trusting us to be ready for day one. And at the same time, they allow us to make mistakes and develop ourselves as the young player we both are. So, again, it's just good to have that confidence around you.
Oh, most definitely. I think just having a group of guys that are really confident in how their team already is and, you know, joining that and just trying to learn from guys like that. So stepping up with guys and just learning from them.
Jeremy Brenner with Orlando Magic on SI. This question's for Jeff and Noah. So over the last few years, I think when Wembanyama came into the draft, there was kind of this rise in French talent coming into the NBA. And we've seen that over the years. There's been more and more French talent coming into the league. What has changed over the last few years to kind of elevate the French talent in the world? And what can you bring, Noah, to this team that you've learned through playing in France?
I'd say the mentality in France. I've been in both of those eras. I've been in between the transition between the mentality of the coaches, the Federation of Basketball in France. Everything has evolved. You have a different way to approach the game now. We start to look up to the United States of how they play, how they train, and we try to catch up to this mentality of always working harder and harder. So I think the progression translates into like we had yesterday overall in the draft we had six French players drafted to teams. So I think it's encouraging for the French basketball, and it shows that we are evolving as a nation.
Jamal, this is for you. Jason Beatty with Orlando Sentinel again. Just how does Noah impact Orlando's defensive identity?
Just watching him and seeing how he plays, his physical stature, the IQ, the ability to guard multiple positions. I think just sitting in that realm for us right now, the switchability, I think that's sits a lot on the forefront for us.
Hey, Jamal, back here. Zach Maskich, West 2, back at the cameras. Straight ahead. There you go.
Gotcha.
There you are. You got a chance to have Jace and Noah in the building now for obviously a short period of time, but what's your overall impression of meeting these young men and how they can gel and fit with this team?
Well, like Jeff said, the character first, their families, and before I do anything, you have to give Jeff and his team credit for what they've done, the research that they do, the hours that they spend to getting it right, and bringing the right type of player and person in the building. And so to that point, it says they've been fantastic. Welcome them with open arms. The way in which they approach the people in the building, they understand what we are about. He talked about family. The way that these guys.
Head coach Jamal Mosley also heard from Jace Richardson and Noah Pinda, the draft picks of the Orlando Magic. Excited to see them on the court this upcoming season. Well, we appreciate you joining us here on Florida Live this afternoon. I'll be out next week, but you'll be in really good hands still during the week, 2 o'clock right here on Fox Local and on YouTube. So have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week.